Hello and welcome back to the Pacific Perspectives podcast. I am, of course, Nux Memes with Kyler Mimamoto. It's been a dreadful couple of, 9 days for both of our teams. So this is going to be a therapy session for both of us. And along with that, it is the NHL trade deadline on Friday. So we have some players who might get moved. We're going to say where we think they're going to go, if anywhere. And this should be a really, really sad episode. Xavier's
Yeah,
already leaving.
yeah. I mean, listen, it's actually crazy how they let the Oilers play 5 warm-up games after the break. It's actually kind of insane how Gary Bettman let us do that and said all the losses just don't count towards the standings. So, thanks, Gary. But for the Canucks, unfortunately, they did not get that privilege. So everything that went bad with the Oilers is actually perfectly fine, and we don't have to talk about it. And the Canucks, well, I mean, we can just make fun of your team. What do you think?
I think you start.
Okay, I actually have a lot to get through for the Oilers. Take a deep breath. So, something was wrong with the Oilers. And I think it's good that we're recording it now instead of, I already got my rants out on Instagram Live. There was something genuinely wrong with the Oilers. And it wasn't a, roster issue. It was the top guys. It was the guys that never take a day off, took a day off. McDavid, probably the worst week, period, I think I've ever seen him play. And even when he came back from injury a little bit too soon in 2019, and he didn't rush his rehab. It was frankly kind of a miracle how fast he came. But that was 6 years ago now. This was a worse McDavid, and you could tell he was. I mean, in hindsight, we probably should have seen it coming. He went from one of the most meaningful hockey games of his life, and something he's been looking forward to for 20 years now, to February regular season hockey. Frankly, probably should have seen it coming that there'd be a drop-off in motivation. But, I mean, you don't expect that. You expect guys to be able to get up and ready to go. But, like I said, it's not a roster issue with what the Oilers were doing. They get absolutely blown out by the Caps. They lose a very bad game where they got 18 shots against the Flyers. Against the Flyers! Yes, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, hot mess. That's right. Very good themes there. They lose to the Panthers in a game that I think they were starting to ramp up and do good. And then they finally win a gutsy effort against the Hurricanes. And I have to say, there were times in that game where they were very in control, and there were times in that game where I thought it was slipping away. I think if they didn't win that game, I'd have a lot different of a message to say about them. But I think just because of the team they were not going to lose that game. Now, Pickard did a really good effort to keep us in that and, made some important stops, especially in the last 5 minutes, which, by the way, took an hour. It was an entertaining game, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just a regular Oilers game between the Canes. They're both kind of shot total merchants. They get a lot of shots despite, and they kind of win the deserve to win a meter a lot when they lose. But then they kind of tied, and I don't know. In isolation, that game is not that important, but you had just lost 5 games in a row to teams you're supposed to be better than. Even the Capitals, who are second in the league and probably even better than the Jets, I'd say. They just did not have it. They weren't even close to having it. Not even close. Tampa was probably the most depressing game because they had something, and then they just completely fell flat, and they didn't even muster a single shot on goal the last 10 minutes of the game when they were down 3. That was just a ridiculously bad period of hockey. Now, I did say it wasn't a roster issue, but I have had my limit with Kasperi Kapanen. He kind of encapsulated everything wrong with that particular streak, that there's a little bit of ticky-tack skill plays there, but there's a ton of important giveaways by everyone on the roster. People want to talk about just Bouchard or just Nurse, who didn't even play for half of that losing streak, or just the goalies. It was everybody. Although, if you want to pick apart the roster issue, it's probably the goalies is where you shore up stuff. But Kapanen, he's not getting a playoff game at this moment. The Oilers, we'll talk about it later, but the Oilers are going to add at least a bottom six forward. He's not playing. Kapanen might be on waivers again. He might go back to the Blues. I don't know. Arvidsson as well. I had hope for him to kind of get up to speed, and I gave him a lot of runway there for the first half of the season, but now he just kind of doesn't do anything. He very clearly is a solid defensive player in transition. He can move the puck. But in the ozone, he just kind of it reminds me a lot of Warren Fogle, except he has no chemistry with any of the top guys. So there's really no point in keeping him along for the ride. And I wanted to trade him, but then it came out today that he has a no move clause that nobody knew about. So that's not happening. And he's probably going to be sticking in the middle six, which isn't the end of the world. It's just I figure they can probably get an upgrade on him. But yeah, just the week from hell, and the fact that they stuck through it and they eventually got over it the way they did is a good sign. But the division, if we had won one or two of those games over that 5-game loss streak, we could probably have the division on lock right about now, considering our schedule for the rest of the year is against a lot easier teams, and we kind of just went through the gauntlet. And after we had previously beaten a lot of those teams, we just completely fell flat. So it's not going to get worse, but we'll see where we are in a week. Canucks.
It's brutal. Going into the Four Nations break, they were 6-1-1 in their past 8. Since the Four Nations break, they are 1-4, which is incredible. The first game was against Vegas, where they didn't do anything, even though they scored twice in the third. And neither counted, which is kind of funny. But we always get our ass ate by Vegas. So, whatever. You lose that game, move on. It's fine. Big game against Utah in the wild card race. Yeah, you don't do anything. 1-1 game, 10 minutes left in the third. Elise Pettersson. Beautiful breakaway pass from Phil Pronik. And
he misses.
And he shoots it a million miles over the net. And then we take a penalty. And who else but Dylan Gunther scores on us, and then we don't do anything. I don't know if we've scored after pulling our goalie at all this season. Besides, I remember scoring on a delayed penalty once. I don't know if we've tied the game late. I can't remember that well. It wouldn't have been a lot of times, which is funny because last year there were a lot of times.
Zero clutch.
Yeah, no, they don't have anything. And then the next game was against LA, where I hated it. They played decent, but they blew a 2-goal lead in 5 minutes in the third, and then took a penalty in overtime. Probably should have lost, but LA's power play is just so dog-ass that they survived it, and Connor Garland sniped it because Connor Garland was having a very, very good game for the only time in the span of a month. So we got to win, whatever. I wasn't happy with it, but I was happy to get the 2 points. Go to the next day against Anaheim, where we once again blow a multi-goal lead in 5 minutes, and then just don't do anything to fix it. We lost 5-2. It was a 2-0 game for Vancouver, and we lost 5-2. Now, the Ducks are better than they were last year. The Ducks are a decent team, so it's fine to lose to them, but losing to them in that way is so awful. And then we have the game on Saturday against Seattle, which, I don't even know what happened in that game, to be honest. I mean, Dakota Joshua scored, so I'm happy. At least I got something out of it. But, dear God, there's just no shutdown happening with this team anymore. Before the break, in the 4 games leading up to the break, we'd given up 4 goals. And
they were playing good defense the entire year, it feels like, and it kind of just fell apart, especially against the Ducks.
Well, I mean, one of the Ducks goals was on the empty net, and one of the Kraken goals was on the empty net, but still, probably you don't want to give up 4 goals or 5 goals anyway on a goalie. Seattle did have a couple good tips, but, I mean, you can't just expect every tip goal to go in. Like, it comes down to positioning sometimes, especially if they're scoring 3 tip goals in like one period. You gotta get one of those saved at least. But they were very good tips. They were impressive. But yeah, no, the Canucks are just fumbling, and Pettersson's doing nothing. A couple games ago, Rick Tocchet was like, I would just like to see Pettersson shoot the puck more. And in the 3 games since then, Pettersson has one shot.
One shot. Oh, that's
which
hilarious.
It's really incredible. I mean, I tried to do a whole ass ritual with candles, and that didn't work. It was
nothing,
a very
nothing
funny
will work
bit,
if that doesn't work. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he needs. Like, I don't know if he still has knee tendonitis, if that's still the thing holding him back. But he just looks so ass, and he was so invisible against Seattle too. Which, man, like, where would we be if we didn't have good forward depth? I don't know. And it's also crazy. Like, okay, Calgary won their first 2 games after the break, and then they've lost 3 in a row. St. Louis has been pretty good since the break, but yesterday they doubled Dallas in shots and got doubled in score, which is funny. Utah's been pretty good since the break too.
I'm cheering for Utah here. I won't lie.
I disagree, but it's so funny. The Canucks are still in that wild card 2 spot. They're tied with Calgary, but they're still there, and it makes it does not feel like they should be anywhere close to playoffs right now. But they are right there if they can just find their legs again. Quinn Hughes is dead. Also, he didn't play the last 9 minutes of the game against Seattle. I had to watch Derek Forbert on the ice after we pulled our goalie, which. I like Derek Forbert defensively. What the fuck is he going to do for us in the offensive zone with 2 minutes left?
That's the biggest thing. I mean, their best player is injured. So that's not a good recipe for success, I'd say, at all.
Like, when he was gone, we had a 3-game win streak going into the break where we only gave up 2 goals. Like, this team can succeed without Quinn Hughes. Now, especially with Marcus Pettersson, they're just not. They just don't, nothing is working. There's nothing that's working. And I'm so thankful that I have 3 nights in a row with no Canucks hockey. I can just gather my brain a little bit. Right now, it's turning into soup watching this team.
Brain soup. I'm kind of glad that they're actually choking this, aside from being an avid Canucks hater. I mean, you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you've got 4 teams competing for 1 wild card spot. Sadly, I think that means that St. Louis isn't going to sell, especially like a Braden Shen or even Jordan Kyrou type. I don't know why there's rumors of selling Jordan Kyrou. That makes literally no sense. But definitely,
they did say everyone's up for sale except for Robert Thomas, which makes me quite interested in Kyrou.
But like, why would you make that trade? Why would you make that? Like, he literally fits their window that they're crafting of like contending in 3 or 4 years. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I have no idea. But I mean, especially Calgary, they're not going to sell. Anaheim, even. I mean, I don't know if they really even have any room to sell anything anymore. Utah, we'll see how the next week goes. They're not in the best position to make it. They don't have the game in hand, especially St. Louis, even. But still, they're all within that game. Within a point, and I mean, my gut tells me that Vancouver's going to take it, and it's going to be quite decisive by the end of the season. But it does definitely depend on if those guys decide to sell, because suddenly you've got Anaheim creeping into it, and Vancouver has just let everyone back in. And the best part is, the 7 playoff teams that are above that have no possible chance of falling out. Like, absolutely. Even Minnesota, who's been on it seems like it feels like they lose every other day, and yet they're somehow still 35, 22, and 4. I don't get it.
I don't get why you said we let them back in. We only just reclaimed the wild card 2 spot right before the break. We only got 3 points ahead of Calgary, and that's not.
3 points
it's not
ahead
like we.
That's a lot. I don't know. I feel like
not really.
It's been Vancouver's wild card 2 for
No,
half the season. I feel
that is very much a lie. We were not in a playoff spot for 2 months.
But they're very much
Calgary's.
the best team there. Is what I'm trying to say. They technically
on paper,
control their destiny.
not in vibes.
Well,
we are not the best team there at all. Calgary, has the vibes. They like each other. They're
I mean,
playing with heart.
on paper, like the team is like a top 10 team, like we saw last year. Maybe even I wouldn't say top 5 minus Miller,
Well,
but
yeah.
like I don't know. It can't continue like this, can it? I mean,
Yes,
you
it
got to be
definitely
you got to
can.
be the pessimist because it's your team. But
Well, yeah, I mean, when the dude you're paying $11.6 million to isn't doing anything at all, I don't even really want to get into that because everybody's getting into that and it's just boring at this point. But it's so very easy to point fingers in this scenario. Like, he's not doing anything. He's not defensively still fine, but that's not what you're getting paid for. That's not the only thing you're getting paid for. It's so impressive. And Besser, I like Besser. If his line mates are having a bad game, then he's having a bad game. He can't lift up a line by himself, and that's frustrating too. And then after that, I mean, like Hedl plays well 75% of the time. We got Garland, who has a good game per week, maybe. Kiefer Sherwood is just hitting people. He's not really scoring as much anymore, which is fine. Pius Suter's a god. Like, Pius Suter is probably my favorite forward on the team right now. Do you know how sad that is?
That's
Pius Suter.
something's wrong.
Just because he penalty kills. That's the only reason.
It's a
They don't
2023
have-
Blackhawks legend. That's a lottery Bedard legend.
The Canucks have no juice in the tank at all.
No juice.
And it's quite pathetic and sad to watch. But shout out Pius Suter because he is the GOAT, and I would really, I'm desperate to re-sign him. You know what? Can I say right now, this is a hot take,
Okay.
but I think it's more important that the Canucks re-sign Pius Suter than Brock Besser. And that's going to sound stupid. But let me explain.
We haven't done this podcast in 9 days. Did you take like a heroin break? Like are you addled? Is something
will
wrong with you?
explain. There's the obvious point that you
Pius
can get
Suter?
more. Yes, there's the obvious point that you can get much more for Brock Besser in a trade right now. Like,
True.
he still has a lot more value than Pius Suter would, so you can build more with him, you can build more without Brock Besser than you can without Pius Suter. Then there's the contract too. Pius Suter, I feel like at this point he might get $4 million. I mean, that's quite a price increase on his current contract, but with his current value and looking at other contracts in the league, plus the cap going up, I feel like that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Brock Besser is getting at least $8 million.
And that's a severe overpay, I think.
And that is also with much more term than Pius Suter is going to get. Mm-hmm. So there's more commitment to the contract, both in dollars and in term. Besser's not good defensively. Pius Suter is the best defensive forward on the team. And it's really not even that close. Like, him and Bluger have been a great PK unit, but Bluger isn't good at even strength this year at all. The Canucks are getting massively outscored with him on the ice in these past 2 months. Pius Suter is one of the only players with a plus rating on the Canucks. And I know we don't use plus minus that often, but
it's valid.
It does tell some kind of story when your only plus players are the dudes on the fourth line, and then Quinn Hughes, Phil Hronek, and Pius Suter. Pius Suter is so valuable to this team. He has 16 goals on his $1.6 million contract. He's saved our PK. Our PK is like 6th best in the league now because of the Pius Suter Teddy Bluger unit. Pius Suter's amazing defensively at even strength if you ignore that first Seattle goal last game. And I would be happier. I don't want to trade Besser because of my emotions. But the right move for the team, in my opinion, is trading Besser, re-signing Suter.
You want me to give my 2 cents?
Go ahead.
I think you're absolutely right. And after thinking about it, I think that's perfectly valid. I mean, if it's between a consistently solid middle 6 forward, you're going to have to pay what he's worth, or a possible awful contract to Brock Besser, considering just what his history is and the fact that he isn't really a driver. I don't think you can pay that guy more than 6.5 and be consistently happy with that number. I don't see it.
I will just restate right now because I feel like people might spin the words. I don't think that Pius Suter is a better player than Brock Besser. Brock Besser is obviously a better player.
Oh, yeah.
The thing was, I think it benefits the Canucks more to re-sign Pius Suter over Brock Besser. If you're not going to re-sign Brock Besser, you have to trade him now.
Now listen, I'm very much of the mind, just in terms of team philosophy, that if you are not going to consistently be a top 10 team with the core you currently have, what is the point in continuing with that? And I said at the beginning of when we started hearing about all like the Miller-Pettersson trade rumors, you have to trade both, because you are allowing you're telling your team, we prefer this guy. And not only does that put a ton of pressure on Pettersson, but that sends the wrong message to the room, especially now that Pettersson is awful. I think it's irreparable. I think you just need to move on. I think you need to move on from Pettersson. And do you need to also move on from Besser? Maybe. I think if you move on from Pettersson, you don't really care about the money for Besser, and I'd be fine paying him $8 million just to make the team not stink as bad as it should, and for like the legacy. But I don't know. It's from the outside looking in, it feels like it's too far gone.
With the cap going up to $8 million isn't going to look as bad.
Yeah,
but we don't have that much money to spend in the offseason, though we already have most of our spots filled. Like we could survive with the current defense we already have locked up for next year.
For sure.
But yeah, $8 million is a little bit of a stretch, especially in the short run, because we don't know if he's ever going to be able to replicate anything close to his season last year, especially without Miller now. He and Pettersson don't work that well together because Pettersson has no speed now, and Besser has never really been that fast. So they don't really work that well on a line together, which is why Besser's been with Hedl or O'Connor or both. He needs to be with someone fast. I don't know. Like, I would be really sad if we got rid of Besser, but emotions aside, it seems like it's probably what's best for the team, especially if they want to trend towards retooling and getting a younger team to build with. The Pettersson thing, though, the problem with trading him now is his value's in the dump. Like, did you see the NHL discussion mock trade?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It was Cole Sillinger.
Before you replied to that, I actually was thinking the Canucks do that right now. I think they would.
Cole Sillinger, Boone Jenner, and a second for Elias Pettersson in a seventh.
They're better.
The value cannot be that much in the dump.
They're both.
And if it is, why trade him?
They're both better than what Pettersson is doing right now. And Sillinger is
right now
will be a solid second line center, I think.
Sillinger's the one that I wanted to get in return for Besser, which obviously can't work anymore. Like, it could have worked earlier when Besser was
I don't know. It could still happen.
No, Sillinger's value is way above what Besser's is right now. You cannot get that. But if we were to find some way to have Besser and Sillinger in a trade for each other, I'd be happy with that. Plus, Sillinger's dad was a Canuck for like 2 years, so there's something there. I mean, he was also a Blue Jacket, so I don't know how much this means, but... Do you want to segue into the free agency talk now? We got 20 to go through.
You mean
not free agency, the trade deadline.
The deadline. No, free agency.
Deadline.
That's a July thing. Yeah, I mean that's a good way to do it. I don't know. The Canucks. We'll get back to the Canucks. There's a lot to talk about there. So for the trade deadline, I picked just 20, not fully random names, but 20 names that are likely to at least come up in most like trade deadline broadcasts, kind of trade lists. In no particular order, although I mean the first one we'll go through is obviously the best one. I'm just going to go through these guys, and I want you to tell me, are they going to get moved and to where? And you can just say they stay or they go wherever. And for some of the bigger guys, we can definitely talk about a return. But for many of these, I'd say for half of them, it's like guaranteed they're going to get moved. Like we'll get into Scott Lawton. Like he posted the Last Supper image. Like he's gone. He's gone. Whether it'll be for a first or a second to the Leafs, or I don't know. He smells like an Islander to me, but they're not really in a position to buy. So we'll get into it. So one of the biggest ones is Mikko Rantanen. Now it's an interesting one because he was already traded. He wasn't on anyone's trade list, and he was already traded, and he went to the Carolina. And I think he's kind of picking up steam now, but Natchez has picked up exactly where Mikko Rantanen left off in Colorado, and now he's kind of just fully replaced that superstar complementary forward to McKinnon, and it worked out perfectly for them. But the Hurricanes thought they were getting a play-driving, goal-scoring, 50-goal forward that's like 100 points, and is what they always needed, and it's not really happening. Everyone thought that they won that trade, but now, is he even going to sign? I don't know. And there's talks of him potentially moving on in a trade. Do you... I'll start with this. Do you think it would be wise to potentially flip him again? Like...
I think it reminds me of last year when the Canucks traded for Elias Lindholm, and then for the next month and a half, it was, is this guy going to go to Boston now? I think Carolina probably holds on to him just because, I mean, they've been a contender for so many years in a row now, and Rantanen can pick it up at any point. I mean, he's scored more recently. He could pick it up. He could definitely pick it up a lot more, and you might not be able to re-sign him, but that still frees up some cap space. Maybe you go for Marner in the offseason. Who knows? If he does get traded, I feel like I could see Chicago. I could see Chicago happening because they have the money to re-sign him immediately, and I don't know if they have the pieces that Carolina would want anymore, but I don't know who else would be able to take that on right now, unless we're doing a Rantanen for Pettersson 1-for-1, which would be kind of funny.
No way.
We'll see.
No way they do that. I don't know. I think the smart thing to do is, even if they think he's not going to sign, treat him as a rental because you have to go for it. You've had how many mediocre years in a row where it's a second-round loss, a Eastern Conference embarrassment, or Eastern Conference Finals embarrassment to Florida over and over again. You're not even they should be close to winning a cup, but it feels like they kind of aren't even close at all. They're just back where they started. I mean, think about that first year that they broke out. They have not gone further than that. They have not gotten further than that in 6 years.
The Hurricanes are 0-12 in their past 12 Eastern Conference Finals games. I'll point that out.
Just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous.
Quite
I
funny.
think if you could trade Rantanen at 50% retained, and you could get Chicago's first this year, along with a couple other pieces, of course, that would be pretty cool. I think I would do it for that. But if you aren't getting a very, very, very high-end pick or a very, very high-end prospect, I'm talking like Demidov, there's no point. There's literally no point in trading him because it can just be your rental. And even if he decides he's not going to sign it, and it looks like he's not going to sign after or right before free agency in that kind of weak space, you could probably get a low first-round pick for him, or even like a high second-round pick from Chicago. So you're not going to go home empty-handed. Now, obviously, that's not a very good asset in exchange for Rantanen, but you can say that you went all in going for Mikko Rantanen, and it's a lot of a big buy-in from your fan base. Now, I know it's kind of a weird management group, and they're a lot more. They think a lot different than the other management teams with Tulski. Very analytics minded, and they might make a calculation that if they make that Chicago trade, like I mentioned, it would serve them a lot better, or even that it just kind of hurts their chemistry because it kind of really seems to have hurt their chemistry. Although I think a part of that trade that people don't often think about is Nate just wanted out, and he was gonna be gone regardless. Getting Rantanen, even if it's just a trade piece now, they did all right. Even if Rantanen doesn't work out. So I think they hold on to him.
All right. Well, that was an insane yap session from you. That was actually absurd considering we have 20 names to go through. You just said the same thing over and over again for 2 minutes.
We're not
Let's
gonna...
go to Brock Nelson. What do you think is happening with him? Because I feel like I know.
Brock Nelson, he's a Minnesota Wild, isn't he? He's going to be a Minnesota Wild for a second-round pick and a third-round pick. 50%
I think Lou's boring and will re-sign him.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'd say that's the other option. He either goes to Minnesota or he goes to like Columbus or he's staying. I give it 50-50.
Oh, speaking of Minnesota or Columbus, those are the exact teams I was thinking of for the next Brock on the board, which is Brock Besser.
That's right, Brock Besser. You know what? That's a first-round pick to Minnesota deal, I think.
We'll see. A couple of years ago, when it seemed like he was going to get traded, I was really looking forward to it being Minnesota potentially.
That'd be nice.
That's definitely the best option for my mental health, is knowing that Besser would be going home at least. But I don't know if he gets traded at this point. All the reports seem to indicate nobody knows what's happening. Like, neither Besser's camp nor the Canucks have any idea what to do. So they might run out of time to decide and just have to keep him.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
It could be an off-season thing. I'm not sure. He's going to free agency, right?
He is.
Yeah, after this year? Okay. So they do need to make a decision then. Otherwise, they're losing him for basically nothing. Ryan Donato, an interesting one.
I think that's Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, really? I could see that. I would say the next name on our list, Jake Evans to Winnipeg, but that's not after the Scheifele thing. That's not happening. But Donato, I think they're going to save him.
We don't know. We don't know because there was a play in 2021, I think, where Derek Forbert completely flipped out on Niels Höglander. Oh, nail the shot. Get the shot. Get it.
I didn't even get the bank in.
That's embarrassing.
That's bad.
That is really embarrassing. There was a play where Derek Forbert fucked up Niels Höglander for no reason. There was a lot of beef there, but we signed Derek Forbert. He assisted a Niels Höglander goal like a couple days ago. That was
I don't
fun.
know, but the Jake Evans one is like really bad.
But like, it was really bad. In a business, you can probably get past it. I feel like they must have talked at some point since then. I don't know. I think more Evans to the Devils. We're kind of doing Donato and Evans at the same time right now.
They're similar kind of middle six players, I'd say, yeah.
Donato, yeah, they're both having like probably their best seasons ever.
Yeah.
I think Donato Jets, Evans Devils. What do you think?
I think both guys, it's boring, but I think both guys are going to stay. I think you get an Evans extension at the deadline, and then I think you get a Donato extension in the offseason. But Donato, first of all, he's not going to get more money from anyone but Chicago. Like, he could probably make $5 million there. No question. I mean, they're giving out like $4 million to Corey Perry and who knows who else. But Donato also, for Bedard, I'm not saying he's going to leave in free agency or get offer sheeted. That's not happening. He'll get his $12 million and move on. But they got to send a message to the fan base and to Bedard that they want to win. And they don't really have... You could cut around the periphery, so like an Athanasiou, who's not on this list. Little guys around that for mid-round picks just to, capitalize and continue to stock up the draft board. But you got to keep anyone of substance, I think. They've already moved on from Jones.
Donato's value is so inflated right now. If you don't trade him, you are missing out on a gold mine.
If it's a serious seller's market and they can get a first, even if it's from Winnipeg, I think you do that. But
I think they can. Like, when I was thinking of what you could get for Donato this season, you might be able to swindle your way into a first-round pick for him.
Maybe.
He's been so good at even strength, too. He has 18 even strength goals this year. That is very valuable, and any team contending they might pay a first-round pick for that.
Yeah.
If you can get a first-round pick for that, you have to do it.
His value is absolutely... I mean, if you're paying a first for Ryan Donato, you deserve to lose in the first round, Winnipeg. But
overpays are important, and because all the wildcard races are so close right now, there are so many teams that are like teetering on the edge of, are we supposed to sell or not? And I mean, Chicago's in a terrible position where they don't have to decide, They just know they're
Yeah.
fucked.
Those teams
So,
are, yeah.
like the other teams, the teams that are contending, might be looking at the players on wildcard hopeful teams and thinking, are they even going to trade this guy?
It's true.
And you see Ryan Donato's there, and that team's going nowhere. You might just get desperate and throw a first rounder at it.
You could be right. I'm not going to say, yeah, you could be right. Like, guys, teams might not even decide to sell until like an hour before the deadline. So
Yeah, it could be a crazy Friday this year.
We'll see.
You also think Jake Evans is resigning?
Yeah, I think he stays in Montreal. Just for him, it makes sense.
I could see that happening. I just want to say Devils because I feel like he would fit the Devils pretty well. But either way, I mean,
Braden Shen.
I think Luke Shen has to be out after saying that he's never been on a team that literally can't score. I think he's got to be gone.
You thought I just okay. So for context, I just put down Shen on the list, but I meant Braden Shen. But Luke Shen is gone as well.
Okay, my brain goes to Luke because he was like, I really liked him as a Canuck.
Really?
So when I think of Shen, I think of Luke Shen before I think Braden Shen. But okay, we can do both. We can just do both.
Yeah, sure. Luke Shen is gone. He's a fraud now. He's gone.
It would be so. You said fraud?
Not a fraud. I don't know.
He's a traitor. He's a traitor. It would be so funny if he got traded back to Toronto. A third tour of duty with the Leafs. And they could use him right now, especially with Tanev out.
I could see it happening.
It could happen. I would really love that. What about Braden? What do you think is happening with Braden?
See, Braden Shen, I think St. Louis has won too many games. They have to lose like 2 of the 3 games they have before the deadline if they're going to sell him. They have to end up at like 500. If they're still kind of within a point of the wild card, why would you sell him? First of all, I don't think there's a massive market for him. You could maybe get a first from like the Oilers or maybe the Devils, something like that. But I mean, that pick isn't going to be anything below like 28. So I think they keep him. They definitely keep him. It's an outside chance. I'd give it like a 20% chance he gets moved, but that's more of an off-season thing. If they are serious about selling off the pieces on the team.
I think Braden is staying, especially because they've been pretty good since the Four Nations break, and they are really, really in that race. But
yeah,
Scott Laughton feels like the most Toronto Maple Leaf of all time.
Oh, for sure. That's just a classic. Like, they're going to pay first and then get bounced in the first round, and Laughton has a really cool hit moment, and he has a goal, but he does absolutely nothing, and they overpaid. And then they re-sign him in the offseason for $5 million. I can see that happening.
Laughton's charts look a lot better this year than they did last year. Last year, they were dreadful. He's like a half a point per game player. He did have a 4-goal game this season. He's still the only player in the league to have a 4-goal game this season.
That was dumb.
It is really funny. 2 of them were empty netters, but they all count the same. It's a 4-goal game, whatever way you paint it. He's also like one of the coolest guys in the league, it seems, like personality-wise. So
oh yeah.
I hope he gets a chance to compete in it. It feels like it's Toronto.
I also wouldn't be surprised if he went to Florida. He seems like a very Florida Panthers guy, you know. But I don't know if they're going to pay that much.
It just feels like it's got to be Toronto and no one else.
I will say they apparently, despite him not having a no-move clause, they seem to be letting him choose. So that would be the only snag in sending him to Toronto. And unless they're like, dude, the Leafs are offering a first. Everyone else is offering like a third. Please, man, please. Although, I mean, I did hear that the Oilers had offered them a second-round pick last year, which is already an overpay. But we'll see where he goes. At the end of the day, it probably will be just where he wants to go, and that might be in Toronto. Who knows?
Why did you say Toronto?
Toronto.
You're gonna make everybody from Toronto hate us.
Toronto. Is it Toronto or Toronto? I always say Toronto.
Well, it depends on, like, I think people from Toronto say Toronto.
When I was 4 and living in Toronto, I said Toronto. So we'll keep it as that.
Yeah, I say Toronto. I used to say Toronto, but they don't like that.
Sounds very that sounds whack.
Okay, let's go on to Dylan Cousins.
Yeah, Dylan Cousins.
I feel like they might be goofy to trade him, but I think, like, I don't know if this has even been rumored at all, but I could totally see him as a Red Wing.
Really?
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I talked earlier about maybe this is a year where Stevie Y makes a really big move because they are right in that. Pardon?
It's been a while since he's really done anything like that massive, I feel like. So
yeah, maybe. But when we did our tier list on where the teams are in free agency or in the trade deadline, I had said that I think they're gonna buy because they're so close to playoffs, and like Stevie, the Iser plan has not done anything so far, and he might panic and make a big move.
For sure.
And I feel like Cousins could work pretty well for them. He's a young center. Maybe he works well with Lucas Raymond. But yeah, I think I'd lean more towards Buffalo keeping him unless they can get Pettersson. But if he's going anywhere, I would say Detroit makes sense for him.
He could really go anywhere. Detroit would definitely be towards the top of the list. If I had to pick right now, he definitely stays. I think he will be traded, but it might be a beginning of next season thing, not even an off season type deal. But eventually he's gone. It kind of feels like that's a move that Buffalo needs to make, not for the cap, but just for the personality and the morale of the team. They need to move on from that. I don't know. They've got other guys knocking on the door. They got a lot of guys in the AHL doing well, and someone can take his spot.
Detroit could also desperately need some center depth. Their 2C is JT Compher, who has not been incredible in Detroit. And then after that, they have Joe Veleno, Tyler Mott, and Andrew Kopp on IR. They could use a 2C for sure. And Tyler Mott is... Why is he even playing center? He's definitely better as a winger.
I imagine Compher would go back in any deal for Cousins, right? That's kind of a player that Buffalo would want, right?
It would be a really good top 6 if they could get Dylan Cousins in this, though. Casper, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Cousins, Kane. That's a solid top 6.
You solid. Moving on. Next one, number 9, Rasmus Ristolainen, who feels like he's been in trade rumors ever since he got to Philly. I mean, I've heard Toronto, I've heard Edmonton, I've even heard Winnipeg. I'd heard basically every single team you can think of has been rumored for him, but apparently nobody wants him. So I imagine if he does get moved, it'll be kind of for 50% retained for maybe a second round pick, more likely a third round pick with a little bit less retention. And I am Edmonton. I wouldn't be opposed to, with retention, having him here for a year. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't give up a second round pick for him. That's too much. It's a little funny considering they gave up the 15th overall pick for him, or 13th, I think. But yeah, I mean, I can't see them getting too much, but it feels like that's probably one of the only real number 4 kind of defense options on the market, at least as a rental. I don't know.
Yeah, he really isn't bad. He just has a bad contract. I mean, I think he's overhated. He's been pretty solid defensively for a little while now. I could see Edmonton, but I could also see him staying. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say about Rasmus Ristolainen, honestly. I have a lot to say about Trent Frederick, though.
Oh, yeah?
By a lot, I mean Canuck.
Really? A Canuck? Really?
This is just wishful thinking. I don't know how we would make that happen. But I know
trade?
that we want to add to our forward group. I know we've been interested in Trent Frederick, and he's also been my favorite Bruin for a year and a half now. So I would be very happy to add him. He adds that grit that we lost by getting rid of JT Miller. I feel like he would fit a role pretty well on this team as, maybe our 3C, and then we prop Pius Suter up in the lineup because, Pius Suter can't fucking win a face-off. That's the only defect to Pius Suter is that he's 42% on the dot. Oh. I'd way rather have him as a winger and have a Trent Frederick as our 3C. But he's pretty much rumored to go quite a lot of places. There's a lot of interest around him because he had a very good season last year.
Yeah.
I don't know what the return for him would be. I can't imagine it would be too much, especially with him having a down year now.
I could see him at the maximum getting a second round pick, and that's just more because the draft is a little dry in that area. For me, I think, like you said, Vancouver, is kind of screams Golden Knight to me. In a way that, like,
Yeah,
I think Oilers are going to be in it to the very end with him. I think I know for a fact they are very interested, but I don't know if they can really. They want to add multiple pieces, as do a lot of teams, and I don't think that can be. If you're giving up a second round pick, that's not exactly who you want. I would like him for the bottom six, but I don't think that's like the finishing touch, the cherry on top piece to win the cup. He's a solid guy, and I can. He's getting moved. I say 100% he's getting moved. Bruins are going to be in on that.
I would be very, very happy to add him. I think he fills a role that we need in the forward group.
And whatever
Quite
team he goes
perfectly.
to, it's probably not a rental. It's probably they're adding him for a few years,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I could definitely see. I mean, it makes sense for it to be Vegas or Edmonton just to antagonize me.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping the Canucks can get that done because I know they want to add to the forward group, and there aren't a lot of really enticing options that fit the
Yeah.
lineup that well. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Jared McCann, what do you think?
Stay. I don't see him going.
I think
anywhere,
Seattle's
honestly.
dumb enough, and if someone really wants to make a splash for it, that's a multiple firsts kind of player. Even though he's not, like a 40 goal scorer, he's a pretty good 25, 30 goal guy. And considering, like you said, how dry the forward market is, especially on the top end, that's a guy. I think that's probably the main guy that people will be after if Seattle chooses to sell him, which, I mean, you're already lacking top scoring forwards. Why would you do that? I like when I saw him on most people's trade boards, I was like, why? Like, why is he rumored? Is Seattle that stupid? The answer is yes, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really see it happening. I know that a lot of people are theorizing maybe a return to Vancouver, but I don't think that
No.
McCann's the kind of guy that we need right now. I just don't really know where he would fit, really, honestly.
I don't think it makes sense for Vancouver.
Maybe Florida. Go back to Florida.
I could definitely see Florida, and he is familiar with that. I'm actually going to go Winnipeg here. I think he could, like, and I'm talking a prediction here. I think he could genuinely be their, like, main ad, like a first Hanela Lambert type deal, like a big package.
That would be quite a lot.
And still, if I'm Seattle, I don't know why you're doing that. Like, it doesn't matter what
He
your
was a
return
40
is.
goal scorer.
He was. And they don't, like, they have an infinite amount of middle six players. He's their only top line player, along with, like, maybe Bjorkstrand.
Yeah. John Gibson. I feel like it's been John Gibson to Edmonton for a while, but Edmonton doesn't see him as an improvement over Stuart Skinner. So I feel like who the fuck wants John Gibson?
I think that's going to be a deal where the teams that should be adding a goalie aren't really interested in adding a goalie. And I don't think there's really a goalie market out there. I think Gibson could be an off-season move, but it feels like it's time. Not like it was before where they probably could have gotten like a first and prospects for him like a few years ago. Now, I think this is a deal where you're going to see like a very late last minute second thought, second round pick to Carolina, and that's it. Like a really, really, really small return for what you could imagine John Gibson to be, because I think it more so now than ever. I think it's Dostal's net, and Gibson's injury issues just continue to be a problem. If he never got injured this year, probably could have gotten a first round pick from Carolina, I think, but I don't. I mean, Edmonton seems to just be riding Stuart Skinner for whatever reason, despite him sucking over and over again. I didn't even really touch on that, but yeah, I don't see too many teams being super interested in Gibson.
The only playoff team that I can see needing help on goalie right now is Florida, because after trading Spencer Knight, their backup is Chris Drieger, but you're not going to trade for Gibson as a backup.
If the price goes down and it kind of ends up around that second round pick type price. Florida could maybe chip in, give him like a prospect and a third, something like that. But again, like nobody's. I think if you got multiple teams into it, it could definitely go up in price, but not right now. Not right now.
I don't really
Carolina's the
think
only team
Carolina
that can
needs
do it.
another goalie who will get injured all the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. But they'd still do it because it's Carolina,
Maybe.
and he's not going to play a
What
single
about Marchand?
playoff game.
You put Marchand on here. Do you actually think he's going to go somewhere?
I want to say no. I want to say he's not moving. But way crazier things have happened. Way crazier things have happened.
How funny would it be if he went to the Leafs? How amazing
There's
would
no
that
way.
be?
No, there's no way.
It'd be
There's no
beautiful.
way.
It would be so beautiful, though.
But that would be hilarious. That would be
It
hilarious.
would be amazing.
That'd be amazing.
But
No, not right now.
mail time. Welcome, everyone, to the mail segment of the podcast. It's okay. Left the fucking
Sorry,
door open.
it was my offer letter from work. Anyways, where were we?
I have
Marchand?
no idea. We were on Marchand. I don't know where
Marchand?
you were at in your sentence.
Yeah, Marchand. Hold on, let me get some water. Damn it, Mom. Okay, so Marchand, I think if he's legitimately on the market, I feel like we'd hear a lot more than maybe teams are interested in their shopping him around. It would be a very last-minute decision at this point for him to shop him. And just philosophically, if I'm the Bruins, I think you have to do it because his contract is up soon. The Bruins are clearly going nowhere this season. I think they've already. Marchand himself has admitted that. You know, they're not playing for playoffs anymore. And even if they did somehow make it, they are within a couple of points. But even if they did somehow make it, they're not gonna go very far. Like that's just self-admitted. They know that now. They're not that team anymore. Even though I think at some points maybe we believe they could have been, but it's not happening. So are you going to retool? And Marchand is just such a part of this team's identity that it's really hard to rip off that Band-Aid. But just think of what you could get. I mean, that's a first-round pick guaranteed for a team that has a really dry prospect pool. I think you need to do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening.
Really? If it were to happen, who do you think gets him?
Toronto. I'm just gonna keep saying Toronto.
I don't know who would get him. Honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm just saying Toronto
team.
just because that's what I want to happen because it would be so fucking funny. What if Marchand and Marner switch teams in free agency? That'd be incredible.
No way Marner leaves anymore. No way.
Well, Marner's pretty good in TD Garden, so.
Oh man, now that I'm thinking about it, Marchand is a Golden Knight, isn't he? Oh, I just spoke it into existence.
Let's go to Carlson because that's a tricky one.
That's a tricky one, yeah.
Erik Karlsson, by the way. There are many Karlssons. We're talking Erik Karlsson.
Not Linus Karlsson, unfortunately. I know
or John Carlson, phonetically. We're just kind of saying the name. We can both see that it's K, but they don't know.
Yeah. Erik Karlsson, I think that's an off-season move. I think he's going to come very, very... I think we're going to hear about, like, Dallas could have pulled the trigger because they missed out on Jones. I think that's probably their next target, even though that's kind of been shut down by management. I feel like they have to. They have to. Because they're going for the cup over and over again.
Dallas's right defense is so disgusting. Like Matt Dumba, Ilya Lyubushkin, Cody Ceci. What the hell is happening there?
They could use John Klingberg.
I agree with you. I think that Karlsson is going to... It's more of an off-season move.
Just for the cap.
One team that I could see maybe needing, or not needing him, but wanting to get him would be Utah. Just because they could afford it. And also, like, on right defense, they're okay with having... They have Dursey, and Dursey's great. But most of their defensive depth is left-handed, and, I mean, Karlsson could... fit pretty well there.
I
but I
have
don't see it happening now.
I have heard some things. I think, and let me just start off by saying this scenario that I'm talking about, while I think it does have some credence and evidence and
Oh yeah,
credibility to it,
John Marino.
is Marino there?
I forgot they had John Marino.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But they
he's
could
actually
still,
solid. Maybe
yeah, they could shift that down a little bit.
Utah
I mean,
makes a lot of sense to me on paper, but what I have genuinely heard is Edmonton.
yeah,
Now,
how are you affording
I
that?
just it would I personally don't think I want that. It's kind of just John Klingberg on steroids, and we already have John Klingberg. So, but obviously Klingberg would be sitting in that scenario. But I think it's if Kane wants to go to Pittsburgh, and I can imagine that Pittsburgh is on his 16 team no move clause possibly. Uh, I have to imagine you'd also need another no move clause to waive, and one is already bad enough. Two is crazy. Like you need Arvidsson to waive, and then significant retention, and then also giving up a first round pick. I just do. I would not be fully surprised if I saw it. I'll say that right now. I would not be fully surprised if I saw it. It seems a very Stan Bowman trade. They've been genuinely interested in Carlson last year. And now that I think they've solidified where they're at with the rest of the defense outside of Klingberg, Emberson, those guys, I think you could see it happening. Like, just imagining it would be a first round pick, John Klingberg, maybe Adam Henrique or Victor Arvidsson. If they waive, Kane is moved in a separate deal, and that's it for Carlson. With a little bit of retention to bring him down to whatever cap hit that is for those other guys. But maybe I'm crazy.
Okay, so that shit's not happening. Let's go to Ricard Raquel. I mean, they need more help on forward. So if they don't get Besser, I could see the Wild being a fit for Raquel. I mean, they've just got Nyquist, but that's a lefty, and Raquel's obviously a righty. That could maybe work, or maybe Dallas. I don't know if that's the kind of move Dallas needs to make, especially after having Granlund. They have a great forward group, but I could see that being a fit.
They do like their Swedes in Minnesota, and Raquel. Why would he want to stay? Well, he is having his second best year ever, besides that 1 year with the Ducks where he had 80 points. I don't know why you'd want to stay in Pittsburgh when you could probably realistically get 7.5 on free agency. Well, yeah, but I don't know. I imagine you know what? All that out the window. I think he stays.
Yeah. I just don't know who's gonna nab him. Honestly, I'm just a little stuck there.
Yeah, I'm having trouble placing a team for him. A lot of people are saying Winnipeg, but
Maybe LA.
LA would make sense. They like their Swedes sometimes.
I don't think we've mentioned LA once throughout this list. You have to think they're going to do something.
I mean, they have to, right? They have to do something. They have to.
Okay, next on the list is Pettersson. Which one?
Elias Pettersson.
Okay.
Which one?
He's going nowhere. That's not happening.
At the deadline, I can see it happening. I would give it a lower chance, like a 30% chance. And if it were to happen, it would be to Columbus. I think it would be to Columbus because they just have so many things they can give up. They have all the cap room, and they don't need, but they could use another top end forward, and that's a place where I think Pettersson could really thrive.
I don't know if Pettersson gets traded without Besser having been traded. It feels like they're working more towards Besser than Pettersson, and
probably
Pettersson's value is just so garbage right now.
If there was a wrench to be thrown into the trade deadline, it would be that Pettersson just randomly getting moved to a top team for. I mean, again, I don't even know what you give up if you're any team. It wouldn't involve a top draft pick for Columbus for sure, but they do have a lot of young players. And besides that, JG Pajot. Moving on.
Jean Gabriel. I have no idea. I have not thought about Pajot all season because I don't care.
I think most of the same guys that are interested in guys like Frederick, Evans, Donato, Nelson, Lawton, they're all kind of grouped into the same people that are looking for a middle six kind of center forward.
Is Tampa going to do something? maybe this could be Tampa has a good amount of deadline space. Maybe that's a Tampa kind of thing.
That does seem like a Tampa type of move, but I imagine with retention, if they can get it done, I'd say Vegas.
I don't want to say Vegas for anyone, to be honest. I mean, okay. He would actually be very good on Vegas. Their current right wing two is Zemgus Girgensons.
Ooh, how are they? What is going on there?
Well, they're good. Besides that, is that okay? In all fairness to Zemgus Girgensons, he has been incredibly unlucky this season.
Yeah,
but he's also bad. He's not a fucking.
I forgot he was Vegas Golden Knight.
Their top six besides that is really good. Like Gensel, Point, Kucherov, Hagel, Sorelli. If you add Peugeot to that, that is.
You're talking. I thought you were talking about the Golden Knights. I was like, since when is Girgensons a Golden Knight? Like, what are you talking?
No, I'm talking about my thing. You figure out your thing.
No. I think Tampa makes sense.
Peugeot or maybe Raquel could be a good. I think they need a second line right winger to go with Hagel and Sorelli.
I just don't know what they have in terms of assets, to be honest.
Picks. I mean, you don't have to. You can just trade a pick for Peugeot.
Well, if it's Peugeot, as long as they have the cap space, he could probably just be like a third round pick and
they have $6 million.
Pick. Yeah,
and they have $6 million to spend at the deadline, so I could see that happening.
If the Oilers do end up, and I think they will, if the Oilers do end up moving Kane for. Oh yeah, we can talk about that after this because I do have some genuine information on Kane that people will want to hear about. I could see the Oilers nabbing Peugeot. I know he's one of their targets. They're not like overly interested in him, but he's a guy. If they strike out on Frederick, if they strike out on Evans or Lawton, then they will circle back to Peugeot. That'll be a last minute deadline, and he's definitely a guy's like most teams like second or backup pick.
Okay, let's get it going. We have three more. We've been on this for a while. Bowen Byram, I don't think he's going anywhere right now.
I don't know. He's definitely a guy that I think could be moved. Probably won't. That's a little boring. But, I mean, have you heard what his ask is on his contract?
What is it?
$9 million.
That's going to be a no.
He wants $9 million. And before that, he wanted $8 million. He wants to be a number one defenseman anywhere he goes. So, I mean, if he has a choice in it, where is he a number one defenseman, to be honest?
I think a place that would fit him well is Calgary because their left-handed defenseman depth is pretty thin. And,
that makes sense.
I mean, he could work pretty well with Weegar, I think.
Still not the number one defenseman, I'll tell you that. But
well, no, he's not anyone's number. He could be Chicago's number one defenseman. Now that they don't have Seth Jones, you want to go to Chicago, buddy?
If he wants to be a number one defenseman, like that's your only.
You got
option.
your wish, man. Now you get to play in Chicago. Congrats.
That or like Pittsburgh, maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, longer term, he's probably the best guy they have. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Byram, I don't think he gets moved. Jamie Alexiak
is a Winnipeg Jet.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I've heard that is the Oilers' number one suitor. That's who they want to play with Darnell Nurse. Basically, they're buying into the size, and he's a genuinely good player. It's just the money is a bit weird. Even if they don't get him now, I think the Oilers will probably circle around in the offseason, depending on what his ask is. But right now, the Jets do make a lot of sense, I'd say.
You've said you've said Edmonton for a lot of these guys. I've said Vancouver for one guy throughout the entire list.
I'm not like making it up. It's just those are the guys. They're all periphery guys. They're not gonna add anything big, but definitely Alexiak. The Oilers will be in on him. I don't know if they get him though. I don't think they're really willing to pay that price.
The final name on the list, the big fish for the trade deadline, the player that every single team is just vying for.
We've all been waiting for him.
A big war's breaking out. Brandon Tanev, where's he going?
Toronto.
Ottawa.
Ottawa. Really?
They don't have money, but it feels like it's Ottawa.
It'll be an Eastern Canadian team, and that's literally just Ottawa and Toronto.
I wouldn't mind him as a Canuck. I always really wanted him as a Canuck when we had Chris. But it would be cool for him to reunite with Chris in Toronto, at least. I could see Toronto, but I'd say Ottawa. If Ottawa's making any move during the deadline, it's Brandon Tanev.
I could definitely see Ottawa, but I feel like if Toronto fully, I'd guarantee it. If they miss out on Lawton, I guarantee you, second round pick Brandon Tanev. It'll happen.
Yeah, they gotta do something. So, okay, who is the player you want most on Edmonton after the deadline?
The player I want most from the deadline. Well, he's not on this list, but Jordan Binnington. We need a goalie. We need a goalie.
You could just put him on the list. You were the one who created the list.
Well, I don't think he's actually going to get moved, is the thing. That might be an off-season thing if everybody's for sale, but no.
In all fairness, you put other players on this list that are more likely than not to stay.
True. Well, they were on other people's boards. It was completely random.
Okay, of the people we just named, who do you want on the Oilers the most?
Elias, no, not Pettersson. Man,
I don't even want him.
That's I'd probably say Marchand. I mean, is it realistic? Maybe. No. Do they have the assets? Probably. Can they pay him in the offseason? Definitely not. So I think long term it's not a good ad, and I don't know if you want to make that, but it would be so fun. It'd be so fun.
It would be quite fun. My guy is obviously Trent Frederick. Looking at the trade deadline, Frederick is the only player that I have much interest in, unless we're trading Pettersson or Besser for young, solid assets like a Cole Sillinger. Frederick of the guys on the list is the only guy that I want. I wouldn't mind Tanev. I wouldn't even mind Donato. I feel like we need a veteran kind of guy now that Miller's gone and our oldest forward is 30, but I don't care. I would be very happy with Trent Frederick, depending on what we give up.
I mean, I'd say additionally, it feels so stupid, but I kind of want Alexiak or Ristolainen. I think overall what we've seen is they need to clone Brett Kulak. That's what they need. If you weren't paying attention, Brett Kulak played the most minutes against the Hurricanes, and he was like phenomenal. And this is when Darnell Nurse has been out with some mystery sickness. But they need another one of those like second pair, number 3, number 4 type defensemen that they don't need to pay a ton, isn't a superstar, doesn't contribute tons of points, but is consistently breaking the puck out in a very good manner to the superstars and the bottom 6. And he can PK, and he can shut down guys in transition, because really that's what we need. That's what we need right now. Just another number 4, another cheap number 4 defenseman. I'd imagine that's what they probably get at the deadline, and it's what we want. It's nothing major to ask, but it'll be another, like, if we remember what the Brett Kulak trade was, I know it was a Lane Hudson pick, but it was just a second round pick. It'll be something like that. I can imagine.
Did you post a question sticker?
I did not.
Okay, do you want to talk about Kane while I do that?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so over the weekend, I heard some things about Evander Kane. Now, what's public right now is just that they're trying to move him, which doesn't surprise me because new front office, they know Evander Kane's history very well, and he is not playing ball with the team. If he didn't have to submit his 16-team no-move clause, I don't think he would have at all. Like, he kind of seems to hate every single management and hates the business side of hockey, which, all right, man. He doesn't seem to... First of all, you're not that good to be able to have that kind of angst towards people. It just feels like he's having a little bit of an attitude here. And he's gone for it. I already thought that the division between him and management and the coaching staff, particularly, I don't think Knobloch likes him. Just imagine being sat out of the Cup Finals when you waited your whole career to get there. That would suck. I don't think you can forgive someone for that, especially if you're Evander Kane and you're a very vengeful soul. For some reason, people are genuinely interested in him. It's not a situation where they're going to have to pay to get rid of him. I think they will get like a 3rd-round pick, maybe a 4th-round pick, and I think possibly it's a hockey trade. Maybe you see like a low-end bottom 6 player come back. I have heard that it's mainly the Maple Leafs and the Rangers who are involved, which I feel like we have heard that for a long time with Evander Kane. I think they were rumored to be in on him for a while. But also Tampa is in there. That's just what I've heard. But either way, I think it will get done. They are going to clear his cap 100%. If they want to get a real asset, they can retain a little bit, but I don't think they want to have that on their heads. But he's gone. Evander Kane, it was nice for that one series against the Flames, and you did kind of all right against the Kings too. But yeah, it was worth it for the time he was here. But unfortunately, he's too injured. He's too old. He is just genuinely not a good player anymore. We'll see how he is when he comes back from injury, but he's just not good. I'll leave it at that.
Thank God, that was so boring.
He's definitely not going to Vancouver. I'll tell you that. You don't have to worry about that.
Oh no! How are we gonna survive without Evander Kane?
For those that don't know, he has been kicked out of like every single casino and bar in Vancouver, and that's where a lot of his like gambling debts is from. But he's not going to Vancouver. That would probably be the first team he has on his no move clause.
Oh no. That's so heartbreaking. I don't know how I'm going to recover from this.
I know. You dodge a
I
real
want him to
bullet
get traded to Vegas. That would be funny.
Vegas.
That would be beautiful.
If he knows what's good for him, he's probably got it on his no move clause.
Yeah, I mean, if he's like goes to therapy, he's probably been convinced.
I mean, dude, the screenshot of him at the Oilers gala with I think they were playing craps right there. That was hilarious. That was just hilarious. That's my favorite picture of 2025.
Oh, there's one like screen grab from a game a couple of years ago. You know how Sportsnet sometimes zooms out of the frame to put an ad?
Yeah.
It was Evander Kane on screen with a gambling ad beside him. It's incredible.
Ooh,
they did not think that through.
He can't do that. All right, we've got the question segment here. You guys suck at asking questions, this particularly Nux Memes followers. They're just awful.
I don't think people care about you, so they only ask questions pertaining to the Canucks.
Oh, is that why? Okay.
If it's on my account. I do have one here that it sparked interest in my brain. We don't really need to discuss it that much, though, but Nash McLeod said, thoughts on Brock Besser to Tampa rumors. And I was literally talking about how Tampa could use a second-line right wing and didn't say Brock Besser. Yeah. He would fit that so perfectly if he were to get traded. So, good point. If that actually happens, I mean, yeah, he's perfect for that role. I could see that happening. What do you think about Besser to Tampa?
I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's like stylistically, it's a fit. They need ironically, even though they have so many goals, they need another guy who can shoot the puck, and he can carry it a little bit. Obviously, that's not a strong suit, but they need another legit top six winger. And I mean, he's on the market. He might cost a bit too much for them, but even as a rental, it makes sense because they could legit win the cup. They could. Wouldn't be my top pick, but wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, if things all work out for them, they could be contenders. But we'll move off that. This episode's long. We'll go to the final one from Randy Richardson.
Randy,
top 5 chip flavors, but we'll do top 3 because nobody wants to listen to 5.
Top 3.
You go first.
Number 1, it's ketchup. W?
Yeah, W.
Okay. I couldn't tell by your face. Number 2, salt and vinegar. Really? Okay. You don't? Wow.
I don't like the salt and vinegar chips. I really like are Miss Vicky's.
Yes, Miss Vicky's.
Other than that, I don't really care for it.
Any chip brand. That's one of the ketchup. I'd say like Lay's does it well, but a lot of things kind of just taste like all dressed, or they taste a little gross. But good ketchup chips are the best. Salt and vinegar. Every single chip brand gets it right. Number 3, cheeseburger. I'm serious. It's good. Cheeseburger chips are good. It's one of those gimmick flavors they did, but they're actually fire. They are fire.
So fucking stupid.
No, they're fire.
Can we scrap this?
No.
Can we scrap this question? Can
I
we
want
just
your
talk
top
about
three.
why every poo-poo time is pee-pee time, but not every pee-pee time is poo-poo time instead? That was insane.
Who asked? You have to out this guy. Who asked the PP time question?
Brian Stevenson. Shout out Brian Stevenson. For asking that.
We will be visiting your home shortly. There will be
Okay,
SWAT
my
car.
top 3 chip flavors. I think I'd agree with ketchup. Also,
Fire.
I only like Frito-Lay products. I'm partial to Frito-Lay, so Frito-Lay.
Why?
Anything not Frito-Lay doesn't count as anything to me. I'll go with that. I'll go with. I don't want to go just flavors. I want to go actual chips because it's different. So the ketchup Lays, the original recipe Miss Vicky's. I fuck with heavy.
Like plain?
Yeah, plain. But it's just they're better than plain Lays.
Sitting here judging
Miss
you.
Vicky's are just so gas. They're so gas.
They are, but plain chips are just kind of.
All right, and this one is going to. I feel like you're gonna hate this one, and a lot of people hate this one because it tastes like cheesy cardboard. But I fuck with the Sun Chips so heavy, and I fully understand that it's cardboard. It tastes like cardboard, but that is some damn good cardboard that I am eating.
It's solid. It's solid. It's all right. It
Some
wouldn't
people
be
aren't
my
gonna like
top
that.
10, but it's all right. But people will hate that. You know, I
I
actually
used to
kind of
really like
the.
all dressed.
Oh,
I
yeah,
ruined all
dressed.
dressed for myself, like the ruffles, all dressed ruffles.
Yeah.
But I don't.
The
I don't
thing
like them
is
anymore.
with
I
all
also
dress,
ruined.
nobody really does it well, except for Ruffles. I think. I don't know what your
Yeah.
experience is.
I ruined Cheetos for myself too. I ate too many in one day, and now I can't have them anymore.
Would you throw up?
No, I felt fat.
Yeah, I never really liked Cheetos at all. I don't know.
I have. It was kind of like an on and off thing for me, but now it's just off.
I do like the jalapeno, like kind of crunchy Cheetos. Those are all right. They're not like flamin' hot. I understand why there's such a thing, but they're
I thought, okay, I'll end it here because nobody wants to listen to us ramble on this for this long. But the salt and vinegar, and the one that I also really like from Salt and Vinegar, the Poppables. Have you ever had a Lay's Poppable?
I've never had those ever.
Oh, they're so good. Like I'm addicted to Lay's Poppables. I can't buy them because I'll just go through an entire bag in like 10 minutes.
Sponsored.
And along those same lines, Munchos. Munchos are probably the most addictive chip ever.
What's a munch?
Yeah, they come in this like really shiny orange bag. They're very similar to classic Lay's, but there's just something about them that they go down so easy. Yeah, no, they're just so good.
This looks like value brand, like dollar store chips. You don't like
They're
these?
Frito-Lay. They're Frito-Lay.
What? Also, by the way, this says $43 for one bag.
Maybe it's
That better
more
be
than
like
one
a
bag.
flat of Muncho chips. Okay, this is becoming the Cheeto brand pod. This is the Frito-Lay podcast. Welcome.
This is a
guys.
movie now at this point. This ain't even a fucking podcast.
Yeah, an hour 20. That's the whole. That's probably longer than the entirety of Jimmy Neutron. Boy genius.
I am sorry to everyone who had to listen to us talk for that long. But
if
you did, smash that like button.
Don't smash that.
Leave a comment down. If you made it this far, comment testicular torsion in the comment section down below so that we know you're a true Pacific perspectiver.
There's going to be a lot of those. All right, we will see you guys on Sunday. Goodbye.